Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Not Movie Hacks. I mean, Film Frauds, where myself, Matt, and my co-host, my son in stars, Tyler,
That's me. Hi.
provide a completely unprofessional, 100% biased opinions of the movies of today, tomorrow, and yesteryear. And today, we're gonna have a good video. We plan things out ahead of time. Do you know why we planned all this stuff ahead of time, Tyler?
Because Mark's not here.
That's exactly why. He's busy on Discord. Studying for an engineering final or whatever.
Or like a bunch of stuff. He's making a watch at a certain point. I don't know. But also, if you don't get our Not Movie Hacks joke, that was a YouTube channel that Matt and I tried to do like 3 years ago.
An alternate galaxy, an alternate timeline.
Yeah, and now here we are, super professional. But yes, Matt, we prepared this episode, and this is going to be a normal podcast episode or weekly episode because Mark, we were supposed to come here and watch The Master in our Paul Thomas Anderson director series. But like Matt said, Mark's busy doing something? Anything?
Yeah.
Not studying?
He bought a piano. I don't think he's ever touched it since.
Yeah, he's never said anything about the piano. We should speculate one day. We should have an entire episode speculate about what Mark's day is like.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, we are doing...
It's him looking at his bookshelf and being like, one day I'll read these books.
And then
one day.
He grabs his bag for the story. He just went and plops down 6 more. He's
yeah.
Like,
and right, he's about to read it, like another Amazon delivery package comes with 5 more books.
He opens the book and ding dong. He's like, yes.
Yeah.
And he spends an hour looking at the covers.
Yeah. But what are we doing today, Tyler?
We are doing, Matt, our best of the decade, our best of 2010s, which I know is people usually do in like January when the year comes out, but we don't.
Yeah. Because we took the time to rewatch most of the movies that we liked.
Yeah,
so
we gave it a shot.
This is objectively the best of the decade list because we spent the most time thinking about it.
Yeah, objectively, 100%. If you disagree with any of our choices, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Except for we can disagree with each other because we're the objective law of the land.
Yes, we're yes, exactly.
Okay.
We are the objective law of the land, except for we both occupy 2 different spaces, so we're technically both right in our own individual spaces.
See, Matt would objectify the right space, he would think, and then I objectify the wrong space.
Well, I don't think, and I objectively know it.
Okay. So, Matt, we're going to throw, here's what we're going to do. We're going to throw together a bunch of honorable mentions. We're just going to do our top 10, movies that we really love but didn't crack our top 10. And then we're going to do something called Asterik Movies, where it's movies, a couple that we have that we didn't get a chance to rewatch, but we really like, and we would love to we could make like an amendum list another year down the line and go, here are the movies I would have added in. But I have 4 for my Asterik movies. I think you have a couple. We're just like, these are movies that I only saw once, but I really loved, and I don't feel comfortable enough putting it on our top 10 because all the movies in our top 10 I've seen more than twice. So we just want to throw that out the way. Also, if you have any like recommendations or you're like, put your own top 10 list in the comments, we would love to see it and then tell you you're wrong. So,
yes.
And
we'd love to say it just to reassure on factual opinions.
That we're 100% right all the time. So, Matt, we came together and we had a list. Matt, what is your first honorable mention that you'd like to throw out there?
So, wait, are these asterisks or these honorable mentions?
This is honorable mentions.
Okay. So my first one is Sicario by Denis Villeneuve. This movie's brilliant. It has Emily Blunt and Benicio del Toro, and Benicio del Toro probably puts on the most threatening and scary performance of anyone of all time. It's time to beat God. There have been video essays just analyzing how the what's it called? The highway scene is like objectively suspenseful.
Yeah.
Like how Denis Villeneuve just by the second pointed out when to show what, how to show it, how to build suspense. And that's one of the best scenes I think of the decade. I would go as far as to say. Yeah. Again, I'm gonna just clarify that every movie I talk about in my honorable mentions and in my top 10 are basically amazing. Like they're all, maybe they're not necessarily perfect movies, but they're all 5 stars in my opinion. Like I can rewatch these over and over again and love them every time. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about it. So yeah, I would say Sicario is my first. I also have Dredd.
Yeah. We have an entire episode on Dredd.
Yeah, we did an episode on Dredd. This is like Paul Verhoeven movie coming out in 2010s. It's
that's a good analogy.
Yeah, so it has Carl Urban, and he's basically a judge, which is like a super police officer who is both judge, jury, and executioner when he goes out and carries out the law. And it's in a dystopian society, and it's all set in one day where he gets caught in a housing complex, which has one of the highest crime rates of any of the housing complexes in the society. And it's about him and his rookie partner, who's a psychic, trying to survive while they're, under lockdown. And it's very much like RoboCop with its, very much like RoboCop and Starship Troopers with its commentary. But overall, it's just a really solid action movie. And I just love a movie that really goes out of its way to like build a world. It has a very well realized world, and just in the costumes and then like the way like the other gang units act and stuff. There's just so much to get out of it, and I think it's really solid. It's basically a Die Hard movie, but I think that the world building, and Alex Garland's obviously a really great writer, who we'll be talking about later on in my list as well. I think this is a really solid movie. If you like sci-fi, do you want to give an honorable mention, or do you want me to go through all mine first?
Yeah, I can give a couple. I want to throw out there. I want to throw out, because we're talking about Denis Villeneuve. I want to throw out Prisoners.
Yeah.
Prisoners is just incredible. It's excellent in nearly every capacity. It's one of my favorite genres, which is a detective crime thriller. It has some incredible performances, some incredible direction. It's just honestly one of those movies that you look at and you just kind of think and you go, that was just kind of excellent in every capacity. And there might be, I can understand people not being the biggest fan of this. I can understand people going, it's probably his ugliest looking movie, but I think that's the point. It's just rainy and gray and just disgusting out constantly. And
like all like the houses some of the houses are kind of gross looking. It's very like real and natural.
Yeah, it just feels very like putrid, and it very much reflects the story at hand. I personally love this movie. I mean, I love most, if not all, of Denis Villeneuve's like American bigger movies. I haven't seen some of his kind of other stuff that didn't release mainly in America. But yeah, I have Prisoners. Then I want to throw out Anomalisa, Charlie Kaufman's 2015 movie. Matt, you're on record of not being a big Charlie Kaufman fan.
I've seen Anomalisa, but yeah, I'm not particularly big on Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah, I am lukewarm on him at times. I think some of his movies are really great, and I think this one is honestly spectacular. It's probably his most simple movie in a sense, where it is tackling the smallest amount of themes, and I think it gets the closest that Charlie Kaufman ever gets to tackling whatever he's trying to say about people. It's 90 minutes. It has some of the best looking animation I've ever seen. It has some of the best performances. It's just so unnerving and uncomfortable because it's so human. And a common trend you'll find throughout my honorable mentions and some of my favorite movies ever are just when they feel real and feel human. And the fact that they were able to create like a stop motion animation movie that felt more real than most movies, I find amazing.
Yeah.
I can throw out one more. My phone locked.
Because I have a couple more after you. So
yeah.
And then
Matt, I want to throw out Drive.
I rewatched Drive 2 weeks ago. Yeah,
Drive is Nicholas Winding Refn's probably his best work. I mean, you've seen more of his stuff. I haven't seen Only God Forgives. But Drive is one of those movies that got me into movies. It's basically anyone who was born as a, what are we, like, post-1995 is probably like, Drive's one of those, like, the coolest movies out there. And it really is. It's so tight. It's so well edited and so well thought of. It's so just narratively engaging despite there not being a lot of narrative thrust. No. I think this is probably Ryan Gosling, one of his best movies. I think this is one of his best performances at times, and I just find everything about this movie so endearing. It's just
his performances, even though he never talks, he barely talks in it, but he's still phenomenal. Like there's like this edge to him that he's very pure and innocent in some ways, but then something clicks and he just goes to this rabid stage and he handled it so well.
Yeah, it's basically the movie like epitome of cool. And that's the best way to describe it. I watched it with just a smile on my face the entire time, and you really can't.
Well, a guy was getting a pipe driven into his neck. I was like, oh, yeah, like a clothes hanger or whatever driven into his neck.
Or when, spoilers, when Bryan Cranston gets like his wrist slit, and I was just like, yeah.
But that movie definitely got me into art films too. I remember I was like begging you to watch it for the longest time. You're like, I want to watch After Earth with Will Smith and Jaden Smith.
That was I did say that. That's on record.
Yeah, on record many times, and it got me into like the synth kind of music genre as well. Like Cliff Martinez, who does the score, he does if you like a synth score, he probably did it. He does it for like The Nick and Neon Demon and other movies. He's brilliant. I really like his choice in music as well.
Yeah. Got any more honorable mentions?
I have 3 more. I'll just get through. Sure. So I rewatched Silver Linings Playbook a couple nights ago, and it was originally like number 7 for me on my list, so it went down a little bit. But this is probably my favorite like romantic movie of the decade.
Yeah.
I remember loving this movie in 2012 when it came out and watching it a couple times. And now watching it as an adult, Bradley Cooper's phenomenal. Like he's insanely good in this movie. His character has undiagnosed bipolar, and he handles that so well. It's really impressive how good his acting is. I forgot how good he was, and Robert De Niro also is great as well. Jennifer Lawrence is okay. I remember she won the Oscar, and I was like, yeah, at the time. And now I'm like, she's good. Like she's solid in it, but not as good as I remember.
Yep.
But the movie is a little slow in the middle, but at the end when they do because the whole movie's about Bradley Cooper is learning how to dance, to do a dance routine with Jennifer Lawrence's character in order to impress his wife, who he separated with us, and she put a restraining order on him because he beat the crap out of a guy she was having an affair with.
Yep.
And like the whole last sequence where they're at the dance recital place and they do the dance, and it's so well directed. David O. Russell's very reserved earlier on.
He's not a good person. We should preface. He's not a very good person.
Yeah, he's not a good person, but like in his directing style, he's very reserved early on in the movie. But at the end, like that's when he starts pulling out like the big shots and everything, and it totally works. I was really admiring his work in this movie in my rewatch recently than any other time I'd watched it. I also have Prometheus. This movie, we have a whole podcast on it. I think it's our best episode personally.
Yes.
I could talk forever about it.
Into it.
Yeah, I put a ton of I rewatched Alien Covenant for that.
Oh my god, you poor thing, Jesus.
If you want like my full opinions on it, just watch the episode. But the movie, just to be sure, the movie handles optimistic space science fiction genre, along with like the horrific side of science fiction expertly. Mainly, and everything around the main character is absolutely horrifying and trying to kill her. But Noomi Rapace's Dr. Shaw herself is a very religious person and uses scientific expansion to help better understand her faith, which I think is really fascinating. So I think this movie stands out because of how it balances optimism and horror in the sci-fi genre super well. And if you can get over some of like the trite, oh, I just touched a snake sort of things, this movie's objectively terrible because characters aren't thinking 100% logically throughout the movie. Yep. Then I think you'd be really into this movie because the philosophy and the themes and Prometheus are phenomenal in my opinion. It's not in my top 10, but it's probably a movie that I'm obsessed about more than any other movie of this decade.
And again, if you want like our full expanded thoughts, we have an hour and 40-minute podcast episode called The Great Prometheus Debate. It's not really a debate. It's just us like talking about the movie. Do you have any more honorable mentions?
I have one more.
Because I'll rapid fire a bunch after.
Yeah. So I have the Girl Jung tattoo.
We did an entire episode on that.
Yeah, that's a very good episode as well, I think. Again, if you want our full thoughts, let's watch the episode. But this is my favorite Fincher movie of the decade, and that's saying a lot because I love David Fincher. I love David Fincher so much. Again, watch our full thoughts, but I just love like the gritty, realistic crime genre movie. Like I love Silence of the Lambs, love Seven, and this movie is also on that tier of I think the movie is equal to those movies as well, which is saying a lot because I love both those movies as well. Daniel Craig is great. Elizabeth, played by Rooney Mara, is phenomenal. That's we both read the books. I watched the Swedish version of the movie, and so we're both pretty well versed in it. And she does a great job. And David Fincher is just perfect for to adapt this material because he knows how to make gritty crime movies. And I think this is for a movie that's 2.5 hours long, and I watch at home where I can go on my phone anytime I wanted to. I didn't check my phone once at all because it's so sharply edited. It's so engaging, and I think if you're a fan of the crime genre, this is no better choice than to go to this movie.
Yeah, I agree with everything. And now ready for the rapid fire, so it doesn't seem like we forget. I have 2 animated movies, the Lego Movie and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I think those are the best animated movies of the decade. Maybe Kung Fu Panda 2 is up there too.
Kung Fu Panda 2 is up there for me, yeah.
That's just pure surprise. I have the best action movie probably of the decade with The Raid 2. I mean, I rewatched it recently, and it's just nonstop fun. I have The Way, Way Back, probably one of my favorite coming-of-age movies out there. I adore everything about this. I have Whiplash and Birdman, the 2 crowning 2014 movies that are honestly just astounding in every capacity.
2014 was a good year for movies.
2014 was a great year for movies. I have 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Personally, my favorite Martin McDonagh movie. I've seen it 3 times. I honestly, each time I watch it, I love it a little bit more. So maybe by like the 5th or 6th time I'm watching it, I'm like, this is just the best movie ever. And then let's see. I also have, I'm going to save one movie because I'm almost certain this one movie is going to be on your list. And then I have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is just it. This is like peak Tarantino for me, honestly.
It's my favorite Tarantino movie of the year.
Of the year? Of
Yeah.
the
I mean,
year.
of the decade. Yeah.
Of the decade, yeah. I like it better than Django Unchained and Hateful Eight as well. I think just his take on aging stars in Hollywood and just making basically the Manson murders a farce is just so enjoyable and so entertaining. I love everything about that. And then I have a Ghost Story. Ghost Story's quiet, it's quaint, it's an indie movie. It's basically, it's 90 minutes. It's not for everyone. It's slow, it's methodical, but it has a lot of really great moments about love and human interaction and people and life and death and everything. It's wonderful. I'd go check it out. So those are our honorable mentions. Now we're going to get to our Asterik movies, and Asterik movies are basically movies that would probably be somewhere on here if we had watched them more than once. I have 4. I can
3.
You have 3. I can give mine because I think we might overlap on 1.
Yeah.
I'll give mine. 2016 Silence by Martin Scorsese. Matt, we saw this movie in theaters when it came out, and it's a lot. It's really
it's a very emotional experience.
It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. It's honestly, it's so intense, and I was gonna rewatch it last night, but I was tired, and I was like, Jesus, I don't want to sit through this, because I watched a couple clips from it again.
I sat through Alien Covenant.
That's a good point. That might even be more emotionally exhausting. So instead, I watched Michael Bay's The Rock, which is
equally emotionally disturbing on a whole other level.
This movie would probably be on the list if I watched it a few more times. But again, it's daunting. It's a really tough movie to get through. I might watch it tonight. I'm not really sure. But yeah, Silence is just kind of, it's just one of those movies for me. It's just like, it's just, if I watch it again, it might be like in our amended list kind of video. Yeah. Matt, why don't you go with
All right, so yeah, I'll go quickly. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, obviously.
Yeah.
I've only seen it once. I remember when we first saw it, we saw it together, and I was really high on it.
Yeah.
And you were kind of like mixed on it, but then the more times you've watched it, the more you've loved it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that if I watch it again, I'll just love it even more
than
I already previously did. I think this movie is really great, and I like Django and I like Inglourious Bastards, but people don't realize that he lost a lot of the good character work that he had in like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, those movies. Like those movies, Pulp Fiction and Django have great scenes in my opinion, but the overall narrative and the overall character.
Django?
What?
Pulp Fiction and Django?
Inglourious Bastards and Django.
Okay.
Did I say Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
Oh, Pulp Fiction is my favorite movie of all time, just to clarify.
Okay.
I feel like those movies lose a lot of the good character work because you can't really say like what are any of the characteristics of any of the bastards in Inglourious Bastards. They're badasses and they hate Nazis. Like that's it. You don't really get anything out of them. And then Django, like I think the side characters are good, but I think they don't give Django enough character, and I think he's kind of boring. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has like the insane action, but it's all reduced to like it's all minimized, and Tarantino's focused more on the characters, and I think that's why Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is so great, and it's a return to form for me back to like the old '90s Tarantino, and I think the movie's phenomenal. I really should have rewatched it for this, but I just didn't, and I think if I did, it would be much higher on my list. Okay, quickly. What?
Yeah, no, I'm saying I've seen it 3 times, and each time I see it, I'm just like, this is just the best. And
I have Lincoln. I watched Lincoln in 2012, and I loved it, and I haven't seen it since. It could very well be on my list if I rewatch it, but I don't know.
It's on Prime now.
Is it?
Yeah, it got put on this month.
Oh, dang it. I have Arrival. Only saw it once. Should have rewatched it. That movie's Denis Villeneuve. We'll talk about later on in more detail.
Yeah.
And Hacksaw Ridge, I should have rewatched. I saw it once, and it was great. I loved it so much. It's like a return to like those Braveheart days where it's like the strong social character in a war movie. You don't really get those anymore. And I mean, Mel Gibson has very questionable morals, but he is a hell of a filmmaker, and I have to give it to him. And Andrew Garfield and Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn is really good in this movie too.
Really?
He is. He's legitimately amazing. I haven't seen it, Hacksaw Ridge, but I really recommend that you watch it. So those are my like.
So I have 2 more. I had to write down 1 more for another category that I thought of. So I'm actually going to save one of my surprise movies for another category we're going to do later. But I have 2011's The Master. We were going to rewatch it, and that would have been my excuse. I watched The Master, and I was honestly floored by it. It's probably the most engaged I've ever been in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie from mere start to finish, considering his movies are so long.
Even more than Boogie Nights?
Even more than Boogie Nights. I was honestly astounded. And we love Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights is phenomenal.
It's on our Hall of Fame.
I have never, it's been a long time since I've been so captivated by a movie. And we're marred by the fact that we're in a quarantine and I have to watch movies on a TV. So you're more tempted to grab your phone and look at your phone. But honestly, like 2 hours went by and I hadn't touched, I hadn't moved like anything. I was just so transfixed on the characters and what the movie's trying to say and just everything. But the thing is, though, the movie's a lot. And the movie is a lot of kind of themes and different scenes and like interwoven narratives and kind of like themes of acceptance and death. And it's one of those movies that's like, I got to watch it again. Like,
I saw it for both of you.
Yeah.
A couple of years, like 2 years ago, I think. And I was watching it. I'm like, there's a lot going on here, and I don't understand it.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I really liked watching it. But again, it was you feel like I feel like a rewatch for our podcast is going to really help both of us out with being in a movie. Because I'm starting to like Paul Thomas Anderson now, so I'm pretty excited for that.
Yeah, and again, this might be a movie that might just be on the list. Like, it might go from like an Asterik movie to like the top 5. Like, it's honestly, I was that astounded by it. And then this one, you don't have to say anything about this because I already know you're going to say it, but The Handmaiden, Park Chan-wook's 2016 movie.
We'll talk about later.
We'll talk about later. I think it's his best movie. I've seen Old Boy 3 times, but this is one movie that I watched once and was like, this is just phenomenal in every single conceivable way. We had an entire episode on that back when we were figuring things out. It's still great. It's still a great episode, but if you want our extended thoughts, you can go to that and you can go later.
Yeah, just go to our discussion video.
Yeah, I only saw it once, and I honestly, if I saw it again, it'd probably be on the list. It's just that good of a movie, but I really only want to put the movies that I can justifiably say that I loved or I've seen 2 or more times. So The Handmaiden is Park Chan-wook's. I think it's better than Old Boy. I really do.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So
we'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that later. All right, Matt. Now we're going to do our top 10 movies. I actually want to go first because one of the movies you have on your Asterik Movies is my number 10. And let me just pull that up real quick. So right now we're going to go just 10, 10, 9, 9, 8, 8. We're going to do all that, and we're going to get to number 1. And again, if you disagree, agree, cool, let us know. We love fan interaction. My number 10 is Arrival. This is Denis Villeneuve's best movie. I just want to throw that out there right now. This movie is absolutely astounding. We saw this in theaters. Matt,
we're gonna do double feature here. We're gonna do Hacksaw Ridge and Arrival, and I'm so glad we didn't do that.
Oh my god, how depressed would we have been?
Really depressed. We would have been dragging ourselves out of the movie theater probably.
And that's so much movie too, because isn't Hacksaw Ridge super long?
Yeah, it's super long.
So
there's a lot of death.
So Arrival is just astounding. I think there is so much great stuff with Arrival. Personally, I think the cinematography, first off, is incredible. This is just such a visually, honestly, it's kind of a simple movie. There isn't a lot of kind of like sets or different kind of like landscapes or anything. It's just this one imposing kind of like ground area with the alien ship. And it's so impactful. I think the performances are excellent. I think the score is excellent. I think the main themes of kind of like love and acceptance of fate and finding a purpose, and it's ultimately like, if you knew how the future would turn out, would you still kind of go through with it? I find this movie astounding. I really do. There's just something so like magnetic about just the way this movie's presented, and it's hard to kind of put into words. But if you haven't got a chance to see Arrival, if you're any of our listeners watching, I really do recommend it. It looks beautiful on 4K. I bought the 4K Blu-ray because it was the cheapest there. I saw it for like $10 at like a Best Buy. I was like, oh my god! And then I watched it that night. And I watched it in 4K, and the movie's just like gorgeous. And I would really recommend Arrival.
Cool.
Yeah.
My number 10 is Green Room. I watched this movie for the 3rd time, I think, a month ago, and this movie just speaks to me. It seems a weird way to describe it, but it's very meditative. It's very meditative on the states of being, like, we're in a state right now where we are safe, and it really shows how quickly things can go sour without it being any bit your fault. So like the main theme, the main plot of the movie is that like this punk band, and they go to perform in a white supremacist like bar, and they go back to they're leaving, and they go, and then like I forgot my keys or whatever. So he goes back to the room, and there's a murder going on, and then they get locked in the room, and they have to negotiate with the owners of the bar and how to get out. And then it's very violent, and what they do, and very realistic. Who's the filmmaker who did these movies? Jeremy Saulnier. Is great at realistic violence and like real characters being put into realistic situations. And I think if you like violent action movies, this movie is great. It's very smart with how dumb the characters are. Like it's kind of a battle to see who's less who's the least incompetent.
Yeah.
Like every plan kind of goes south, both on the protagonist side and on the enemy side. But it's just fascinating to see these guys try to like figure out how to get out of this horrible nightmare situation that feels incredibly realistic, while also having that realistic theme of things can go really horrible really fast, and you might not even see it coming. So I think that it's one of the best movies of the decade, and it's a movie that I can watch over and over again and get more out of every time. And it has like this weird like green like filter that's great. Like it makes all the shots look like they're in like a nightmare dream, and it's really really impressive.
I sometimes flip back and forth between being able to tolerate really violent violence and just being like, I'm not in the mood for it.
Really violent violence.
Really violent, really fine, really graphic violence. How about that? That's a better adjective. And one of those, anytime I go to watch Green Room, I just go, do I really want to sit through this right now? And then I just don't. So I never got a chance to see it, but eventually I will, because I'm taking your recommendations more. And that leads me to my number 9, and it's the only director where I have 2 of his movies on my top 10. So by that standards, he is probably my favorite director. If we go by most movies on the top 10, it's A Marriage Story by Noah Baumbach. This is one of the only movies I've ever watched twice in 1 week. And I know that just sounds weird, but I usually want to wait like at least a month before I go, I'm going to rewatch this movie. And I'm going to kind of like, I let it sit for a while. But I watched Marriage Story, and I was like, I got to see this again, like right away. And I watched it 2 days later when I had time. I find this movie to be emotionally raw and very hard to watch, mainly through some of the best performances I've seen from Adam Driver. I think Scarlett Johansson is really great, but Adam Driver, I think, acts her under the rug. There is just such an emotional weight and punch to all their words and all their actions, and I think there's a real talent in how simple the movie is directed. It knows not to be too flashy because it knows the draw of it is this kind of is this emotional battle between these 2 people, and it's nowhere near as like violent or what's the word, volatile, thank you, as like Kramer versus Kramer, where instead chooses to focus on like the relationship and how there is still love there and how they can go forward. And I think this movie is incredible. I really do. And it's coming from someone who isn't the biggest Noah Baumbach fan. I was just looking at his movies. I don't like While We're Young. I'm not the biggest fan of Kicking and Screaming. I think The Squid and the Whale is decent, but like
Kicking and Screaming, the Will Ferrell movie.
The Squid and the Whale, what?
Kicking and Screaming.
No, yeah, nice joke. It's just like really like, I think it's like a really pretentious like post college movie about how no one in college acts like that. I'm just saying, as someone who's graduated college, I understand a lot of the themes in that movie, but I think this movie is just really impactful. I think it's one of the best emotional movies and character movies of the decade.
It's crazy that Adam Driver had 2 movies come out last year, and one was Marriage Story, the other was Rise of Skywalker. And I remember like the fight between Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver in that it's like this boring white room. But that scene it's probably the best scene in 2019. And compare that to Last Jedi, which is a billion ships fighting a billion Sith Lords. I don't remember any of that. It just goes to show that it's about emotion that draws you in the scene, not bombastic special effects and action. But yeah, Marriage Story is great. I probably would put that on one of my like I need to rewatch it lists. And I'd be like an Asterik movie, because that movie is really really great.
And I mean, that just speaks. I mean, 2019 is a monstrous year for movies. We have 2 classics. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Parasite are already classic movies, and then you have, and Marriage Story is my favorite above them, and you even have movies that are so visually engaging like The Lighthouse. that came out that year that's one of the more visually interesting movies to come out in recent memory. And I think I like the look of Marriage Story more than that. I find this just such a magnetic movie, but I digress. Yeah. Matt, what's your number 8?
My number 9.
Are we on 9 already? 9. Number 9, sorry.
Yeah. Because you just said 9. I'm on 9. So my number 9 is Cold in July, which I think is probably the most hidden gem movie of 2010s, because no one talks about this movie. You are the only person I know who has seen Cold in July.
Yep. Off your recommendation, it's really great.
Yes, it's directed by a guy who does a lot of like lighting effects in movies, and it stars Michael C. Hall, Sam Shepard, and Don Johnson. And it's about this normal guy, Michael C. Hall, who a robber breaks into his house and he shoots him dead, and then things get more complicated after that, because I want to go into as little detail of the plot as possible. But this movie, above any other, I think has the best lighting of any movie I've ever seen. It's very blue. It's very like, it has like a blue tone to it, but they have like, whenever there's light, like a lamp light or sunlight or flashlight, it's always like this like vivid orange or yellow, and this makes the movie look so beautiful. You've seen it. It's been a little while since you've seen it, but just rewatching it on like my big TV, just being able to appreciate how much thought went into the lighting. Like there's in the last climactic scene, he's in a blue room, but then there's like a green room and a red room on both sides behind him. There's some attention to the lighting in this movie, and it just looks so amazing. And I can't really give enough credit to it. Like they put so much effort into the color of it, and also the story itself is great. It's one of those like realistic crime movies where Michael C. Hall is great. He's like this normal dude, but he's like, after like the break-in, he's just on edge all the time, and he's always jumpy, and he has like a beer at 9:00 in the morning just to calm down. It's like there's a lot of good humor in it, but it's also very serious. It gets very serious later on, and it's just a very like grounded action movie, much like Hell or High Water or No Country for Old Men or Sicario. It just feels so realistic, and not in like the goofy Coen Brothers way, but in like a more morbid but also still kind of humorous way. And I think that it's pretty weird this movie didn't get any attention at all. I think this movie is absolutely amazing, and no one talks about it.
That's one of those movies you're like, you have to watch this. You implored me to watch this, and I went, okay. It's like, it's just another like movie that's like weird movie that Matt likes or whatever.
Yeah.
And I watch, I'm like, this is pretty great. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I've never heard of this before.
But I mean, I just can't, like, no one does lighting like this. Like, no one does lighting like this movie. It's just brilliant. But
I want to rewatch it, but I remember like seeing your letterbox, and it's just like, Cold July, 5 stars. I'm like, yeah, he's having fun. I'm like, he's having the time of his life right now. My number 8 is a very interesting one. It's by far the worst movie on this list, but it's just one of my favorite movies. It's About Time. I am a massive sap.
The hidden gem About Time that everyone knows about.
The hidden gem. I want to throw this out there. I've seen this movie about a dozen times. I really like. I watch it like every 8 months.
I close my blind because there's like
I'm going to talk while Matt is just kind of doing his thing. I've seen this movie about a dozen times. I saw it when it came out in 2013. I'm like, this is just incredible. And then I've seen it ever since. I think this is one of my favorite in just more human romantic comedies I've seen. It's a movie that its entire message is about focusing on the little moments and the little kind of intricacies of life and enjoying those moments. And because you never know what might happen. You might never get them back again. Oh my God, Matt.
It's so blurry.
No, you're fine.
Oh, it's not blurry. Oh,
no.
Okay.
Matt just is losing his mind a little bit.
Yeah.
It's so like the best way I could put it, that sounded really lame. It's just cute. It's just an adorable movie.
Is it?
It's so cute.
It is blurry. No, it's not.
Matt, it's not blurry.
So
oh my
stupid.
God! Oh, what is wrong with you? I'm going off about Time, and you're ruining my monologue.
Sorry, you had so much planned about Time.
I know. I
It's
watched.
about time you wrap this up.
Damn it! All right, Matt, what's your number 8? No, it has one of my favorite scores and kind of favorite like use of some like contemporary music in it. Honestly, I think it's my favorite romantic comedy I've seen since like When Harry Met Sally. Like in that time span of 80s, I'm pretty sure, when Harry Met Sally came out, to 2013. I found this movie so charming, and I understand it's not the best movie, but no, it's no longer a hidden gem. You're right. It has a 3.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd, which is really hard to do now. People fucking know about this movie and love this movie. And every 7 days on Reddit, it's just, About Time is pretty underrated. It's not underrated. I get it. But I find it so charming. And I saw it first. How dare all of you. Get out of here.
I'm the original.
I'm the original. I know better than you. No, I'm just kidding. About Time's great. I would highly recommend it. It's on Netflix. I watch it like every 8 months. I've seen it a dozen times. It's my go-to movie. Feel good. Matt.
Craig, he has a big bowl of ice cream.
And I cry a little bit. No, he loves her so much.
I wish you'd love me like that.
Domhnall Gleeson, you're so hot.
I want a man like that.
Rachel McAdams, who?
Yeah, the bitch.
Margot Robbie's in that movie, by the way.
Is she really?
Yeah, she's like,
wow.
It's like a young Margot Robbie. It's like, oh, cool. She's, yeah, good movie, though. Honestly, recommend it. Go crazy. Matt, what's your number 8?
So, my number 8, it's a good movie. Parasite.
Yeah.
So in 2019, I had Parasite and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood tied for my favorite movie 2019. And I've only rewatched Parasite, so I'm thinking if I watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it'll probably be really high up there as well again. But Parasite is just a ride. Like, I loved it when I first saw it, and it was way before it got any of its Oscar attention. Like, I've been saying this, like, I've been so excited for this movie way before because I've been a big fan of Bong Joon-ho. I love I'd seen Memories of Murder, The Host, Mother, and Snowpiercer before seeing this, and I was so excited. And just to see it finally get the attention that it deserves is great. I can't really say anything about this movie that hasn't already been said before, but, upon rewatch, I loved the movie when I first saw it, and upon rewatch, I was like, yeah, this movie is something special. It just handles like the socio side and the human side of the class conflict so well, and even though it's mainly a story about South Korea, obviously everyone around the world can relate to, and that's why it's gotten the success that it has. And I really hope, probably out of influential movies of the decade, I'd say this has to be one of the most influential, hopefully one of the most influential movies, because I really hope that the Oscars start bringing more foreign films into American theaters, which would be great because seeing Parasite get all these Oscar wins is really amazing. But again, I can't say anything in this movie that hasn't already been said other than it's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it because it's just phenomenal, and the ending is so great. And yeah, that's it.
I can recognize that Parasite's Bong Joon-ho's best movie, but it's not my favorite movie of his. I can go, yeah, it's like a technical masterpiece on every level, and it's narratively great. I have a few other Bong Joon-ho movies I love. Above that, I really love Memories of Murder, The Host, and I think Okja for me is above Parasite. But that's not me saying Parasite's a bad movie. It's I just said it's his best movie
because Tyler's rich and he doesn't like.
This is where all my wealth goes is just right here. I have nothing. Yeah, Parasite's excellent. It's a classic. I mean, it's gonna be one of those movies that we look back and go, yeah, 2019, the Oscars got it right. And
yeah, it's a case where the Oscars are being progressive in a positive way. Where I mean, it doesn't feel forced. It feels like they're actually taking a direction, the right step to having more diversity in theaters. Because again, hopefully there'll be more foreign films in American theaters soon because of the success of Parasite.
Yeah, and I mean, if you just look at it, there's a really wonderful video of a bunch of young adult South Korean people. Men and women, and they're watching the Oscars, and then when Parasite wins, they're just so happy.
Yeah,
they're like, it's basically look at
even just the cast of Parasite was so happy.
Yeah, they're like, oh my god, we won, and even
Bong Joon-ho didn't go up and rant about drink milk for 20 minutes. He was like, thank you, and he just was so appreciative to everyone.
He's like, oh my god, he's like, I'm gonna get hammered tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna drink until tomorrow morning.
You're like, yeah. I look forward to what everybody else does next. Matt, my number 7 is our first time we're going to have a disagreement. My number 7's Her. You are not the biggest fan of this movie. I've
listened to it once, but man, I was not a fan of it.
You are not a fan of it. I've seen this movie 4 times. I actively seek this movie out sometimes to feel something inside when everything's hollow and all dead inside. This is Spike Jonze's best movie. This is Spike Jonze's best movie. It's my favorite Joaquin Phoenix performance. It was honestly, for a while before I started getting more into movies, it was one of my favorite movies just ever. I adore every single thing about this movie. I think there's such a lovely human element. It's such this weird pang of loneliness persisting throughout. How Joaquin Phoenix, like, throughout cannot build human connections, but he builds like this. It's just this like weird relationship with his AI, and that's just because it's just so compliant. And you watch it, it's like, this is odd. And like Rooney Mara is in this movie, and she calls him out on it. It's like, you can control me, but now you can control something, and that's why you love it. And ultimately, like, the fact that even this AI ultimately is just like, I talk to other people. Like, you're not the only one I talk to. It's like, it's this weird, like, persisting thing of like loneliness and searching for a purpose and searching for love. And ultimately, the movie is a kind of a roundabout way to get there. And like, it's a wonderful character study, and it's a wonderful envision of the future, a realistic future where things are just a little bit more automated, a little more sleek. And I know it's taking place in like a city, so it doesn't really like grasp probably outside where everything's shit. But ultimately, it's just one of those. It's visually, narratively, it's
like Dread. They're in the same universe.
Yep, it's you just
just down the road is peach trees.
Yeah, I love her. I love it so much. It's such a charming movie to me, and it's a shame.
Joaquin Phoenix is a master of scenes with music playing in the background where he goes like this, and you just assume something artsy is going on.
Yeah, hey, bastard. This is one of those, like, when Scarlett Johansson was getting like, should she get Oscar buzz for voicing something? I was like, yes. I'm like, absolutely, she should.
I was like, no.
And Matt was like, no. Matt, you should probably rewatch her.
I should rewatch it, but it's one of those things where, like, when I was a dumb kid, I knew exactly what was going to happen. As soon as it started, I was like, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And then I was watching it, waiting for it to not happen, and then it did happen. And it was just okay. I don't know. Yeah. It was very melodramatic.
Yeah. Our first disagreement, Matt. I love it.
Yeah. First of many. So my number 7 is a good sci-fi movie.
God damn it.
Ex Machina.
Yeah, Ex Machina is great.
Alex Garland, Domhnall Gleeson. Good Domhnall Gleeson movie, unlike the one Tyler mentioned.
Damn.
And Alicia Vikander, and Oscar Isaac. And it's just a really solid, like, sci-fi horror, kind of somewhat horror film. And this, again, everyone loves this movie on Reddit, so I can't list anything that hasn't been said already. But you guys got to appreciate, Alex Garland's like eye for like sleek design, sleek directing. Giving Oscar Isaac could easily just been like lame, like generic genius, insane genius guy, but he has good character to him. Like how he probably spent days programming the robots to do the same dance moves that he does. Just things like that. Like he's so smart, and like this is something he'd think of when he's alone. But I just love the themes of like the human mind working like a computer, and that's how Oscar Isaac figured out why Domhnall Gleeson would be like the perfect candidate to do the Turing test, something test.
The Turing
test.
Yeah.
On Alicia Vikander's and AI character. When I was younger, that blew my mind, and I just still like it to this day how your mind operates as an input-output system. I think that's great and really interesting. And Alex Garland has gone on to tackle great themes as well with Annihilation, came a couple of years ago, and then last year's AI, I think it's called. No, Devs, which is a great TV show about alternate realities. So, but yeah, it's just, I mean, Ex Machina it's like an hour, 45 minutes, sleek, really great, somewhat low budget sci-fi movie, and that's like kind of like my genre. So
yeah. Spoilers real quick for Ex Machina. Skip like 20 seconds. One of my favorite reveals is when he's like, "How did you like model Alicia Vikander's character?" And he's like, "We just looked at like who you watched in porn and just created that."
Yeah.
It's like this wonderful reveal. And you're just like, oh.
They find like they did like he's like because he's like a lonely character, so that's like why he's like you need someone who is lonely, and it's like
it's like it's just like one of the, because you think like, why is he picked? It's a wonderful reveal of like you're not special. It's like it's great. Well, Matt, I can't disagree that that's a great movie, but you know what you haven't seen that's my number 6 is Noah Baumbach's Frances Ha.
I watched half of it.
You watched half of it.
And
that's right.
I didn't like it.
You didn't like it. That's oh my god. My list is so excellent. This is one of those movies that if you watch our other podcast, Mark will very much like to say that he saw the movie Adaptation at the right time when he was getting into movies and was focused on this like, I don't like, it was like a movie that broke like a typical structure because he thought like movies had to be like that. So we saw Adaptation at the right time, and I saw Frances Ha at the exact same time. Who knows? 10 years down the line, I can go, I didn't like this movie. But right now, ultimately, it's one of those movies that is just a perfect representation of what people our age are going through, where it's this post-college malaise. It's a lack of finding a purpose and finding a sense of identity, and you're not really sure what you want to do with your life, and people are getting older and they're progressing, and you feel like you're just kind of like staying behind. It's beautifully shot. It really feels like, because this is around the time like Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig started dating and kind of getting together, and there's scenes where it just feels like they're like falling in love. Like there's a wonderful scene where she's like dancing down the street, Gerwig's character, and the camera just follows her, and it just feels like there's so much like love behind the shot. It's just so focused on her, and it's just so like it's visually interesting and just like lovely. And I find this movie to be so thematically resonant with who I am right now. And again, who knows, 10 years down the line,
20-year-old girl.
She's not 20, she's 27.
Oh, 27, whatever.
Yeah. Freaking weirdo. Yeah, she's 27.
What's weird about that?
You say she killed her 20s. It's the complete opposite. The fact that the whole point of the movie is that she's entering adulthood. She's an adult, and she's still struggling to find a purpose. She's not 20. She goes back. Spoilers. She goes back to be an RA at her college, and there's there's that weird, like, she's like, I've been back at school and I'm 27. There's a scene where she's like, "Are you a student there?" She's like, "No, I went here a long time ago, but not too long, but like a long time ago." And they're like, "What the fuck? Like, you're 27?" I adore this movie. I love it more than Marriage Story, and this is my favorite Noah Baumbach movie. And again, it's really surprising considering I don't like a lot of other Noah Baumbach movies. It's really weird. He's like, these two just like, they just got me right in the feels. It's got me. Matt, make your joke. What's your good movie at number 6?
Well, I'm not making a joke anymore because you said it. My number 6 is Calvary.
Yeah, we did an episode
which again
on that.
we did an episode on. I kind of use film products as an excuse to rewatch all the movies I loved of the decade. This is John Michael McDonagh, who is the brother of Martin McDonagh.
Yep.
They're both Irish filmmakers, and Calvary is set place in Ireland. John Michael previously did
The Guard and
The Guard, which is great.
Yeah,
and this movie has Brendan Gleeson in it. And so this movie takes place in like a small town in Ireland, and as someone who's spent a lot of time in Ireland, I appreciate that aspect of it. And it just follows a priest who is at confession one day, and the guy says that he was sexually abused by a priest, and that he needs to kill an innocent priest to feel some sort of vindication. So then he says he's going to give him a week to settle whatever he needs to settle, and then he's going to kill him. So it just follows the priest during that week, and just basically living his life. And somewhat trying to figure out who's doing it, but he kind of already knows who's doing it. But he's just trying to do what he can for the rest of the town before he thinks he's going to die. And like with Martin McDonagh, they have very it's a very brutal movie at times. I think Martin McDonagh is a better filmmaker and a better writer, but I think that John Michael McDonagh's Calvary is like the best out of all of those movies.
Yeah,
I think his highest high is higher than anything Martin McDonagh has done. And,
wow, that's bold considering.
But I love Martin McDonagh, just to clarify. I did a whole class on him, and I read all of his plays, and I've seen all of his movies. So I know a lot about both of these guys. And you have movies like what's it called? The post office movie.
The Post?
No, the one
Spotlight.
With Spotlight, where it's just where like it does good things, but it's just all about slam dunking on the church, and there's really no point. It's just what's his name, Mark Ruffalo. Yeah, it's a Mark Ruffalo ego project. And then you have movies like God's Not Dead, which is just too much of which is basically propaganda. I think this movie is like perfectly in the middle, where it's about virtue, and we quote this movie more than any other movie, I think, on the podcast, where we say like, oh, people who have a crisis of confidence never had much of a faith.
Yeah,
we say
that's probably our most quoted thing on our show.
Yeah, so I mean, this movie definitely hit me like really hard because it's in that gray area. I think it brilliantly like dissects many aspects of atheism and theism, which I think is really great.
Yeah, it's one of our movies in our Hall of Fame. If that gives any indication, it's one of our few out of our episodes. We have.
There's a theme where I like very philosophical movies, and Tyler likes it made my heart feel warm.
It made me feel emotion. It made me feel something.
Isn't he glad that Mark's gone, so I can just channel everything?
Yes,
everything that you say.
I know it gives me practice to try to like fight back.
We don't have to wait for Mark to quote someone on Reddit
or Rod Ebert.
Roger Ebert.
Because one of our another famous quotes, our thing is, Roger Ebert is only right when he agrees with me.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then when he's
Just like how
wrong,
Tarkovsky is the best filmmaker, other because
Bergman said he
Kubrick was
was.
influenced by Bergman, and Bergman was influenced by Tarkovsky, but then it just ends there.
But who was Tarkovsky? It basically
Michelangelo Antonioni, who's now Film Fraud's objective greatest filmmaker.
Yeah. If you don't get the joke, Mark was like, I have an objective like formula that shows that Tarkovsky is the greatest filmmaker ever. He goes, because Stanley Kubrick's regarded, blah 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 blah. But Kubrick said Bergman was the best, but Bergman said Tarkovsky was the best, and it just stops.
It just stops there.
Yeah. So Mark, you're a fraud. We're calling you out.
Yeah.
But you know what isn't a fraud movie? My number 5, and that is 2017's Columbus.
I haven't seen this, so I can't say anything.
You haven't seen it. You can't.
I probably roast you anyways. But...
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'd be very concerned if you didn't. It's one of those movies that Reddit saw, like 4 people saw, and they're like made posts about it, and then everyone else saw it. It's directed by Kogonada. It's one of those movies that when we were doing Not Movie Hacks in 2017, we made our best of the decade list. I hadn't seen it yet, and then I watched it, and I'm like, this is the best movie 2017. I'm convinced. It is visually just a masterpiece. I think this is one of those movies that I love, where it just places the camera down and it just lets moments just kind of build, and it lets characters do things, and it takes in the scenery, and that's ultimately what the movie's about. It frames the understanding of the little moments, and like I said with what was the other movie on our list I forgot about? About Time. About Time's focus is on the little moments and how we should appreciate that. And Columbus frames that, but through architecture, by pointing out the minute details. And look, these are the things we miss. And ultimately, it's using those kind of things and then framing it through a wonderful relationship, a slight coming-of-age story, and a slight kind of like acceptance of families' faults and misgivings and things like that. And I think there's a wonderful friendship built here by John Cho and Haley Lou Richardson. And it's just like wonderful like dichotomy of they each have their own issues and how they come together and how they kind of develop as characters. And this is one of those movies where a lot of the movies just characters walking around and talking. It's very much feels inspired by Linklater's Before trilogy, where it's just characters exploring who they are and using these architecture as a framework for exploring their ideologies and how they became the way that they are. I think this movie's astounding. I've seen it a few times now. I think it's just a near masterpiece. I can't say enough about this. It's on the Criterion Channel, so if you happen to have a subscription to it, go check it out. It's so beautiful. It's so perfectly directed. And now Kogonada is actually coming out with a movie whenever our Lord and Savior coronavirus decides to let it release its grasp on us, called After Yang.
All hail the Corona.
All hail Corona.
We're not worthy.
We're not worthy. And it's coming out with Colin Farrell and Jodie Turner-Smith, and who is in Queen and Slim, and then Haley Richardson is back in it. So that any movie he makes now is like an immediate like, I gotta go see it. Matt, you look like you want to roast me. What do you got?
I want to see this movie.
Yeah,
it sounds interesting.
Yeah, I personally think you would really like it.
Even give me a Criterion subscription, I'll watch it.
Maybe I will. Maybe you know what, Matt, I will, but after, so people don't know my login.
Smart idea. Can't really fault you for that one.
Yeah, Matt, what's your number 5?
Let me pull up Letterboxd really quickly.
Yeah, my phone keeps going up, and I have to look at the phone.
My number 5 is Birdman.
Wow.
Yes, I should have rewatched. I haven't seen. So just to clarify, I haven't seen this movie for a little bit, but I remember loving it. And it as someone who's like trying to get into like the writing field, I found it to be very, very interesting because it's about like a creator, entertainer. What's his name? Michael Keaton, yeah, who was Birdman, and he was like this hack actor who was in these crappy blockbuster movies, and then he wants to be a serious filmmaker, but you don't know if his intentions are pure or not. Like he isn't. It's pretty unclear if he's just like if he's doing just for the sake of redeeming his own reputation, or if he actually wants to make art. Yeah. So he goes into theater, and it's directed by Alejandro Iñárritu.
Yep.
And it's all made to look like it's one shot, except for a few shots. But it just handles, like, as someone who has worked in theater before in high school and stuff.
Nerd.
Yeah, it was fun. I just really appreciate like the backstage politics that's going on, and
Yeah.
you just feel like, and like the one shot take of it makes it just add to the chaos of what's going on. And it just handles so many interesting themes of redemption through art, and like selfishness in humans, and if it's like, if you're really doing it for the sake of art, if you're doing it for your own ego, and it goes into like Shakespearean stuff, and it gets pretty surreal later on. But this movie is stuck with you like throughout the years, and it's basically prophetic. And it's like sort of ending sequence where there's a stage and there's like Bumblebee fighting Spider-Man. They're in like costumes, like they're in like Hollywood costumes, and there's like a whole lot of drummers like banging on drums in the background. So it's a really great movie, and it's hard to talk about without spoiling anything. But I would probably be recommending it on Film Fraud at some point, because I want to rewatch it really badly, and it just handles like that the struggle of the artist so well, and it just strips like the purity of it away, and it's great.
I agree. I put it in my honorable mentions. It's an astounding movie. I said it's probably the best movie of 2014.
Yeah,
up there. So yeah, 2014 is a great year for movies. Yeah, Birdman's excellent. It won Best Picture that year.
Yeah,
and that kind of speaks everything that you need to know about it. All right, Matt. Number 4 is going to be our biggest disagreement yet. We have an entire episode on it. Number 4 is La La Land. It's we have an entire episode on this. Listen, I understand a lot of the hesitations with this movie. I can understand that there's complaints about like, why is the savior of jazz like this white dude, and is this like I can understand like it's not really.
This is Ryan Gosling.
He's Ryan Gosling. He's super hot. I mean, come on, get with the times, everyone. Jesus. Who else to save jazz except Ryan Gosling? I mean,
yeah,
come on.
No one.
I understand people going, it's not really musical. It's not really like the super like in-depth dramatic, because half it's a musical, but then when it's stripped away and it becomes more like raw and human, it's not a musical. I find this movie astounding. I've said astounding a lot, but I find this movie so magical, and it's exactly what it's going for. And I get that it's basically Hollywood, being like very masturbatory with itself. Like, look at the beauty of Hollywood. It doesn't actually, like, you talk about the purity of the purity of the struggling artist ripped away with Birdman, and this is very much like, now we're gonna put it back and we're gonna put a nice coat of sheen on it. Like, I understand a lot of that, but I find this to be such a fantastical movie, and so there's so much gravity to it behind me, and I find it so magnetic and engaging to watch. In the visual style, Damien Chazelle is honestly up there with one of my favorite directors of the decade, considering I think all of his movies, the 3 he's made, Whiplash, First Man, and Whiplash, La La Land, and First Man, are all A's. I find all of his movies to be so, contain such a tight thematic purpose. It knows what it's trying to set out to do, and it does that in, I think, its best possible way. I find the music, I honestly like will drive to work and just listen to some of like the engagement party when he's at the party, just at the party, and just like melodically playing piano music. I just listen to that. Like, it comes on, I'm like, yeah, it's 1 minute and 50 seconds long. Sure, why not? I find this movie incredible. It's one of my favorites. It's my favorite movie, 2016. I love everything about it. Matt, you're not the biggest fan of it, but we've talked about it a lot. So there's an entire episode on it. If you want to go check it out, just look up La La Land. We had a 10-minute argument about the lighting in the first scene.
So, how bad it is.
It's not bad. It's wonderful. So, yeah, Matt, we can skip all your shit on La La Land because we've already.
Well, I'm about to get some crap for you.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about becoming a lobster.
Oh my God! Yep, this is another disagreement, Matt.
Yeah. So you only listen to the movie once though, and that's because you're like not really a film fan. So yeah.
This isn't your number 4.
This is number 4.
Yeah, you should clarify.
Directed by. Oh yeah, shut up. You should have said it. So this is Yorgos Lanthimos, who I saw this movie, and then he quickly became one of my favorite filmmakers. The general premise of the movie, it's an absurdist story where you're in like this dystopian society, which is like basically set in real day. I think it's either filmed in Ireland. It might have been filmed in Ireland or in the UK. Oh. And this where it's illegal to be single, and if you get divorced or if your spouse dies, you have to go to this hotel and find another mate. And if you don't find another mate in a certain amount of days, you get turned into an animal. and it's called The Lobster because the main character, played by Colin Farrell, says if he can't make the limit, he wants to become a lobster. So, and it's never explained how they turn to animals. It just happens. That's a part of the beauty of it. And Yorgos has such a weird way of deconstructing human interactions, and it's fascinating. I can't really explain it unless you watch the movie, but everyone's so desperate to get into a relationship because of the fear of turning into an animal, which I guess would probably be like the equivalent of fear of dying, or becoming like getting
lack
too
of
old.
purpose, like
lack of purpose, and
identity.
Like the desperation that people think that like, oh, we need to have something in common. So one guy likes a girl who has a natural nose bleeding issue, so then he starts breaking his nose when she's not around, to make it seem like he has natural nosebleeds as well, just so they can fit in and get married. And there's this really brilliant line delivered by Olivia Colman where it's like, and where like the two people get together, and she's like, and if it doesn't work out, you'll be given children because that usually helps. And it's delivered so dryly. It's brilliant. And there's so many examples of just the way he deconstructs just basic human like thought and interaction. It's brilliant. And it's the same thing if you watch Dogtooth or Alps, Killing Sacred Deer. You'll see that in those movies too. He just has he just understands the way people react so well, and the way he makes fun of it is so brilliant. And he has like his own unique style. And usually I don't like things that are too overly stylized. Like I don't like Charlie Kaufman. I'm not a big fan. Well, I think Charlie Kaufman's pretentious, to a certain extent.
Put out the P word there. Damn.
And I think that a lot of it is just artsy for art's sake. But like I think Yorgos has a style, but there's this purity to it that I can't describe that is there. I'd say The Lobster kind of slows down a bit towards like the latter act. It kind of crosses to the finish line, but it's so unique, and it's so well thought out that I have to put this high on my list because it's always been in my head, and it's just so daring and bold. I just love so much. We're gonna do an episode on it at some point soon.
We will. Matt, Yorgos Lanthimos is very like dry and like tart way of humor, and for me it works in like Killing Sacred Deer and The Favorite,
and like kind of brutal. Like there's a lot of very brutal stuff that happens in those movies too.
I completely agree. And for some reason The Lobster just didn't click. Again, I watched it back in like 2016 and I was like, no. I'm like, it's not for me. So maybe I'll rewatch and go, meh, it's better. But now, Matt, we're at our number 3. So these are our top 3 movies now. And I believe we don't have a single movie in common. If I understand, so. I thought Lobster would be your number 3. So I don't think I know your number 3. I think I have a guess. But our number 3s are all going to be different. So my number 3 is my favorite South Korean movie, Burning. I fucking love Burning. We had an entire episode on it. Burning, and you're going to hear me say this probably 2 more times, but Burning is a textbook example of why I love movies. Burning is so abstract in a sense, where the entire movie you can watch it one way and then watch it again and get something completely different out of it. And that's what happened the first 2 times I watched it. It's so methodical, and it's so purposeful in its direction, and its slow pace is done to build this kind of sense of atmosphere and humanity to it. It's a wonderful commentary on class disparity and wealth disparity, and there's lots of themes of masculinity and toxic masculinity and jealousy, and it's so perfect. It has one of my favorite sequences ever, in where the dancer, when they dance to the sunset, when she dances to sunset.
Yeah, that's an amazing scene.
It's amazing. But that conversation, the conversation between Stephen
There's
Yeun,
the little heart and the big heart.
Yep, and the big heart. The conversation between Stephen Yeun and the main actor, I can't remember, where he basically confesses, like, I burn greenhouses, greenhouses, and it's just like, oh my god, this is incredible. This put me square on the Stephen Yeun train. I'm like, I will see anything he's in. Like, I want to watch Mayhem now. I contemplated watching Mayhem last night just for him. There's a trailer that came out, Minari, where I saw it. I'm like, good God, Stephen Yeun is amazing.
Yeah.
I find this movie incredible. Like, I really do.
I've seen the movie twice as well. I think I recommended it to you.
Yeah, and I watched it, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I don't, like, you definitely vibe with it more than I do, but regarding, like, complexity, like, this movie has to be one of the most celestially complex movies of all time. Like, there's really no clear answers to a lot that's happening, and it's not even a bad thing. It actually makes the movie better. It's a movie that you can rewatch over and over, and get new ideas for, and feel different things for, because it's not really about figuring out the plot. I know a lot of video essays, like, it's all about the plot, but this movie is more about themes, and you're meditating like what your own mind meditates on when you're watching it. And yeah, I think it's really great. I think it's one of the better movies of the decade.
Yeah, I just want to say two more quick things about it. Again, it's a movie about perspectives. Like, you are convinced by the end that certain things are happening because you're following this character. But we are thrown into question in the movie that it might not be true, and you don't know what's true. And it's also my favorite author. I've said this before, despite having issues with a lot of his books, is Haruki Murakami. And I find his prose and his writing style so magnetic. And this feels like it's also based off a short story, which is decent.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's but it just feels like it perfectly captures his writing style onto the screen. And it's so mundane seems like a bad word to use as a positive, but that's the point. It's just so wonderful. I adore this movie, and it's one of those movies which will also be the same with my number 2, where I watched it and I'm like, I could watch this tomorrow. I kind of want to watch this tomorrow. And I waited like a month to watch it again so I could like research it and figure out what is happening in this. I love everything about Burning. It's directed by Lee Chang-dong, by the way. I should throw that out there. So yeah, if you haven't, it's on Netflix. It's not an accessible movie in any capacity.
No, it's not for everyone.
No, it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. Matt, you had a friend that you said hated it.
Yeah.
But here I am singing its praise. Matt, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Skyfall.
Whoa, really?
Yes, I love Skyfall. Love Skyfall. I was a big fan of the original Bond movies, like from Connery to Pierce Brosnan. I love them all. And then when I saw Casino Royale when I was younger, I was like, that was okay.
Yeah.
It was a little too gritty. I think Skyfall is the perfect mix of the gritty Casino Royale with the slightly more fun themes of the other Bond movies. Never really gets to bad point, but it definitely goes a little more bonkers than Casino Royale. But just from a filmmaking standpoint, what's his name? Who directed it?
Sam Mendes.
Sam Mendes. So many brilliant shots. Like when he's going up the elevator, he has to hold on to it, and then he gets in the fight with the sniper, and like there's like that. They're in Tokyo Tokyo or something, and like there's like that advertisement on the wall, and it's like playing all these different like light shows, and like their silhouettes are fighting.
Yeah,
it's so great. There's so many really great shots, and then I mean Javier Bardem is the best Bond villain probably ever.
Yeah,
he definitely accomplishes. He's definitely the most successful Bond villain.
He also shows up like an hour and 10 minutes into the movie, and it's
and he's great. Javier Bardem needs to be in more movies, but his dichotomy with Bond and how like he's kind of like the forgotten spy, and him dealing with that, he has very realistic motivations, and it's written by John Logan, who wrote Gladiator, did the screenplay for Gladiator, did the screenplay for Last Samurai, for Penny Dreadful, which is I'm rewatching again, and he mixes poetry so well with his scripts, and he's one of the best screenwriters I think ever. And there's that great scene where M is giving her her stance when she's on trial, and she's quoting Tennyson, and she's like, oh, I've never been in love with poetry, but my husband was a great lover, and despite investing attention, some of it slipped into my mind. And she's quoting Tennyson while Javier Bardem is breaking into the thing, and Bond's running for his life. It's so dramatic. It's such a great scene. I don't know. This movie just works for me. I love spy movies, and this is the best in my opinion. Mostly because of John Logan's script. He's just a brilliant screenwriter, and he's so good at making interesting dialogue scenes and making smart characters. And I can't say enough about him.
I watched this a couple months ago and was just all my thoughts echo yours. I was like, damn, this is amazing. This is like, it's probably, if this was like the end to James Bond, perfect ending. I mean, how can you beat that? It has so many themes about like aging and aging out in this.
Yeah, exactly. This is like the most incompetent James Bond we've had.
Yeah. He fails all of his like tests. He doesn't really succeed a lot in this movie until the end. He's constantly outwitted. I actually was surprised this was number 3 because this was one of my honorable mentions that I wanted to save. Where's Whiplash for you? I thought you would love it. It's in my top 20, but it's not. Okay, because I that's what I expected number 3 to be was Whiplash. Skyfall.
I love Whiplash, but it's not.
It's not. I'm actually really surprised, Skyfall, because I knew you loved it. I did not know it was number.
Well, that's the thing. I love all these movies that I talked about. So
I know what your number 1 and your number 2 and number 1 are. But now my number 2, my number 1, my number 2. Matt, you recently rewatched this movie. Is The Social Network.
Yeah.
The best way I could put this movie, because everything that has ever been said about The Social Network has been said. It's one of those movies that I've seen and I've thought about every single day since I've seen it. Like again, I cannot believe, like, once a day I go, I kind of want to watch Social Network. And then I find myself thinking about, like, some of the sequences in it. I said this for Burning. This is like the textbook example of why I love movies. It's so methodical and it's so purposeful, and there's so much like lore with this movie about how David Fincher just like berated and just was like, all right, Aaron Sorkin, how long do you want each sequence to be? You have to time it. And they timed it. And every time in that opening sequence with Jesse Eisenberg and Rudy Mara, it's like faster, faster, shave off 40 seconds, faster, faster. It's like, this is perfect. There are so many great things about this. This is the best edited movie I've ever seen. And I will throw that out there right now. I do not care how hyperbolic that statement is. It's the best edited movie I've ever seen. I find this movie to be so magnetic. And I say the word magnetic a lot, but it works. It's just, I left and I just go, that's just perfect. Like, everything about that movie is perfect. I think it's Dave Fincher's best movie. I think it's better than Zodiac. I think it's better than Seven. I think it's better than anything he's done. And I think it's not even close. I don't think there's a competition. As much as I love Zodiac, and as much as I love something like Seven, I don't think it's close. I really think this is one of his movies that just works in every single facet. It's a wonderful character study. It's a wonderful emergence of a titan, and it's a really engaging thing to view from a context of where we know now in 2020. I understand it's not historically accurate, but that doesn't make it any less incredible. Matt, do you have
I rewatched it last week, and I agree with you. It's not my favorite of the decade, but it's a brilliant character study, and I just love the ending. I guess spoilers. Everyone's in this movie, and now if you haven't, like, obviously you know what happens.
Yeah.
But the last scene where it's like showing like, oh, Jesse Eisenberg is the world's youngest billionaire, and then it just shows, and then while it shows, it's him like just like depressingly refreshing a Facebook page to see if the girl he likes accepted his friend request.
Yep. And you're just like, oh my god.
I vibe with this movie a lot. I forgot how good it was when I rewatched it. Again, it's not one of my favorites of the decade, but it's so like cynical in a way that I appreciated it.
One of the most engaging sequences ever is just them going like, and what was his shares diluted down to? They weren't. What is his shares diluted down to? They weren't. What is his shares? They weren't. What is yours? 0.03%. It's just like it's just like your gut drops a little bit, and you're like, oh fuck.
Doesn't Timberlake is so great as well. He's such a snake. And then when he's like, he's being like all tough, he's like, oh, here's your check. You might want to cash in though because you froze that bank account. Yeah. And Garfield just goes like that, and he just like cowers away. So great. So
yeah. Great. This is. I just want to throw this out there alone. We talked about Silence. I think this is Andrew Garfield's best movie. Just want to throw that out there right now. He is so like
Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2. Yes. I hate this song when he's like, the Itsy Bitsy Spider. Oh, I hate this song. I go, great. Yeah. Social Network. I mean, I love it. I love everything about it. It's amazing. Matt, what's your number 2?
So number 1 and 2 are kind of like 1A, 1B. Yeah. I try not to say the word masterpiece very often. I think that's a really bastardized word. Especially in film criticism.
You want to just give them back to back? You can just give your 1 and 2 back to back.
Yeah, I guess give them back to back. Yeah. But I would say The Handmaiden is an all-around masterpiece. It's in the movie 4 times. Directed by Park Chan-wook. And if you want to get our full thoughts on the movie, watch our review, which is one of our first videos on this channel. I mean, what is there to say? It's just from a directing standpoint, acting, directing, music by I have his name right here. I actually Googled it just for the sake of this.
I'm so proud of
Young Wook Jo, who does the scores for Old Boy, The Handmaiden, Lady Vengeance, JSA. He's just brilliant. He's literally a musical genius, and the movie's 2.5 hours long. And as someone who does not like that run length, every time I've watched it, it just flies by. It's just masterfully edited. Park Chan-wook finds new ways to shoot every scene, and within those scenes are either like these amazing landscape shots of Korea, or like these really like elaborate and like opulent mansions inside. And again, like it's like one of those like there's like YouTube channel. It's like every frame a painting, and I would say like every shot in this movie is really really great looking. And of course, the characters and like the romance is really great. And there's no like, oh, I love you scene. You just know based on the way they're acting, the way they're talking to each other, what's going on. And it's just best to talk about this movie as vaguely as possible, because a lot happens in it.
Yes.
But yeah, I love the 3 act structure. I love the revelations made later on. And again, like 4 times I've seen this, and every time I love it more. I appreciate a new aspect of it every time I watch it, and I think this movie is just above any other movie in the decade is flawless.
Yeah,
I'd go as far as to say. And my number 1 is Mad Max Fury Road. I said The Handmaiden is an all-around masterpiece. I don't think Mad Max Fury Road is a masterpiece, but I think it's an action masterpiece. I have so much. There's so much going on right now. I don't know where to start.
How many times do you think you've seen Mad Max Fury Road?
Close to 20 times.
Oh
close
my
to 20 times.
God!
It's just I'll start with George Miller. There was a great documentary just came out on Warner Bros. They just released it like a week ago, just about the making of Mad Max Fury Road. And he had these panels. Like the movie was literally, there was no script. They decided to move based on comic book panels, and it was literally in his office for 15 years, waiting for the movie to get made. He had this idea 15 years before the movie was actually made, and it's like it just represents like the struggle of the creator and having it finally pay off 15 years later and making one of the best action movies ever made, if not the best action movie ever made. And going through all that strife of filming in Australia, and then while they're filming this, the first rainstorm in years and years happens, and it turns the whole like orange desert into Ireland basically with its greenery, and they had to go away and to film somewhere else. And the performances aren't gonna like win anyone over. Tom Hardy's okay in it, and like Charlize Theron's okay in it, and the script's kind of fine, but like the world building in every scene, like there's so much great world building in what people are wearing, how they're acting, how the war boys are acting. They all worship Morton Joe, and like the way the cars are designed, they all worship cars basically. It's just like, it's just so good. It's just so well realized. It's so like, maybe it's just the anthropologist in me just talking, but I just love all that stuff. And I can't really go into like, I'm not a filmmaker, so I can't really speak specifically, but when I'm rewatching it, like the way it's shot and the things that they're able to accomplish in like these car, because the movie's basically one long car chase.
Yep.
And every time I watch it, like I feel the suspense. Like I'm gonna go into spoilers, I guess. It doesn't really matter. But like the scene where Charlize Theron's driving and she's holding Max, and then that guy from behind who they set up was like trying to like get his way back on the car, stabs her in the side, and like that, like it goes like sound goes like that. So it's like a car honking, and it just deflates me every time. You just feel like, oh man, they're gonna lose now. It's such a great scene, and one of my favorite scenes of the decade has to be the sandstorm scene where they're driving through the sandstorm and there's a huge hurricane, tornado thing, and it's like shooting lightning, and like that. Then it plays that song where it's like, like it's so like epic, and you just feel so small. You just feel like you're just like the characters are just a small part of this greater world, and it's just I don't really know what to say. It's everything that I want in a movie, and I like the characters. They feel vulnerable. They are part of this really unique and crazy world, but above all, the movie has heart, both behind the camera and in front of it, and the script. It's just great. I can't really put it to words.
Yeah, Matt, I completely agree. Mad Max Fury Road's excellent, and it's very funny because my number 1 is gonna follow a similar trend to you, where we had our entire list and honorable mentions of these like very thematic and intense movies, and our number 1s respectively are not.
Well, the Mad Max has themes.
Well, it has themes, but it's also not like this like. My number 3 is Burning. I mean, and your number 4 is The Lobster. I mean, it kind of like, these aren't these grand movies. And my number 1, and everyone's going to disagree with me on this, and I'm going to lose so many people, it's Creed.
Wait, did you say number 2 yet?
Yeah, my number 2 was Social Network.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, my number 1 is Creed. I mean, I know that sounds like blasphemous considering I have it above like The Social Network, but the Creed is, I've seen about 10 times now. It's my favorite sports movie ever. If we could classify it as an action movie, it's my favorite action movie. This was my favorite theater experience ever. It has one of my favorite sequences ever. You go, knock that son of a bitch out. You wonder why? Because you're Creed, and I love you, kid. And it stands up, and dun, it's the Rocky music. And I honestly, like, every time I get, like, this massive rush of adrenaline. But regardless of the fact, it's so methodically directed. And I think that's a good thing, is there are so many little moments and little choices that build this world and build this post-Rocky world. And I'm not a giant Rocky fan. I should preface that. But there is just so much heart and care and crafting behind this movie that every single shot, like you said, I feel like I just am engrossed in it. I think this is Sylvester Stallone's best movie. I think he should have been nominated and he should have won.
Yeah, should have won.
Should have fucking won. And the fact that he was nominated for Creed speaks to just how he's taken a step back and how he let the reins off the franchise a little bit and how he kind of gave up and he allowed himself to play that kind of like aging in that aging role model. And there's great themes of acceptance and self-identity and finding a purpose and accepting like who you are. And there's wonderful like commentaries of like the poverty-stricken youth in Philadelphia. It's so incredible, and like fighting your way out of basically like nothing and becoming something and being recognized for who you are is so excellent. I love every single thing about this movie, from the music to the shots, just everything about this movie is incredible. I listen to this is like some of my favorite workout music. I listen to that on the car. I'm like driving to work as a teacher, and I'm like coming to a place. I'm like, it's great. Yeah. I love everything about this movie.
I love the movie too. Best theater experience. We saw it together. Best theater experience.
We see a lot of movies together.
Yeah. You know, when that you knock this one bitch out scene, like everyone, and it goes and then like everyone in the theater literally no one was like screaming or anything, but everyone in the theater just like adjusted in their seats.
Yeah, it's like
red, like because like the excitement, everyone was so engrossed.
Yeah.
And then like the great shot where Michael B. Jordan's character is going out into the arena, and you just see like you just feel like you're with him walking out, and like all the crowd is there. And then the great entrance for the bad guy.
Yeah. Was just you and I just like looked at each other at that point. We're just like, this is so cool.
Yeah. No, the movie's great. It's not on my favorite of the decade, but I agree that Creed is definitely something special. And again, the whole Rocky's plot line in the movie is probably the best Rocky plot line apart from Rocky 1.
Yeah, where he's like, it's just. There is just so much, like, and we can even talk about the boxing sequences, which I think are some of the best put to screen, because Ryan Coogler directs it in a way that allows us, like, the final fight is shot as like an HBO Max boxing fight.
Yeah, it feels incredibly real.
So that allows for the cameras, the movie cameras, to be in the shot, because it masks them as like these are the cameras that like a professional boxing mask would have. So you can get these like long wide shots of the ring, but with like movie cameras in the corner, because you're like, oh, they're filming it for an HBO thing. It's so well crafted, and honestly, that entire final like fight is just so like it's so like perfectly like narratively structured, where he gets his ass kicked at the beginning, and then he has that little moment where it's like, oh my god, he can fight this and he can do this, and then it keeps going. And I love everything about this movie. I want to rewatch it now again. Yeah, I've seen it 10 times. It's so amazing. Matt, that was our best of the decade list. I do want to give a shout out to something. Matt, do you have like a TV show that you would throw out there? Like one TV show of the decade?
Oh my God.
I know one. I threw it on the spot, but I was thinking about it because despite all we've talked about, none of this has been my favorite media I've consumed this decade. And that number one would go to BoJack Horseman. Like if we're talking about pure media consumption over the course, it's BoJack Horseman. I love everything about it.
Can I say 3?
Go for it.
So I mean, True Detective season 1 is probably like my favorite story put to film, I guess, of the decade. I think it's brilliant. Cary Fukunawa is a brilliant director.
Yep.
You know, obviously the Woody Harrelson, Matthew McConaughey performances are iconic by this point.
Yep.
Especially Matthew McConaughey as Russ Cole. I don't want to. I hate always bringing this guy up, but Charlie Kaufman's. I'm thinking of Anything, where the characters are they're just like vessels to elicit sardonic dialogue, whereas Russ Cole in True Detective is a existentialist kind of nihilist character, but he's a character and he's in a story, and he says very nihilistic things that Nick puts lots of the writers obviously thinking, but it's to better the larger part of the story. The narrative takes precedence over the writer getting his own viewpoints out to the public. I think it's brilliant. I think it's like I said, the best story put to film of the decade, in my opinion, at least. Season 2 is also very good. People crap on season 2. Season 2 is pretty good. Then The Nick. No one likes The Nick. No one talks about The Nick. People, I don't think no one likes Nick because no one's seen it. With Clive Owen probably gives. I keep saying best and greatest, but Clive Owen at least gives one of the best performances of the decade in that as Dr. Thackeray. And it's all directed by
Steven Soderbergh.
Why do you? I can't remember anyone's names today. Steven Soderbergh directs everything, and it's just brilliant. It's so great. It's so good, and it's only 2 seasons, so just watch it because it's so great. And then the last, like the climax of the whole series has been stuck in my head for 5 years straight. I cannot get it out of my head. It's just phenomenal. And then I'm rewatching Penny Dreadful right now for the second time. Well, it's my third time watching it, and yeah, I just talked about it previously, but it's written by John Logan. Eva Green's in it, and I'll probably talk about it more in like a what we've been watching thing, like later on in the month when I finish rewatching the show. But also great. We'll watch those.
All right, we got a few categories because we're not going to do.
Wait, can we pause it for a second?
Yes, we'll pause it. We'll be right back in 1 second. Okay, and we're back. Matt had to go pee because he can't hold his bladder. He's like,
that's true. I was just don't want to be uncomfortable.
So that was our best of the decade. Now we're gonna go through a couple, I think it's just 4 kind of trends, question things we want to discuss. I feel like we can't escape the 2010 discussion without talking about superhero movies.
Yeah.
So we just want to touch on let's just do 2 of our favorite superhero movies that come out in the 2010s. Were any close to maybe potentially being an honorable mention? We're also not those people that are just superhero movies. We don't count them because they're superhero movies. No, superhero movies are kind of fun. They're really legitimately, there are a couple really good ones.
Yeah,
legitimately good.
But we just don't like the oversaturation of them.
Yeah.
And video essayists who think that only movies that exist are movies that cost $300 million to make.
Exactly. So Matt, why don't you give me once? We'll just go. Let's just do 2 each. We'll give 2 superhero.
So my 2 are Civil War and Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yeah.
Especially Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I think Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is actually kind of a really great movie.
Yeah.
With its themes of it kind of tackles different themes. Usually a Marvel movie, you think of works team, be your own person. But this movie tackles fatherhood, which is interesting. Or just parent, mostly fatherhood, but you could say parenthood just in general.
Yeah.
With taking Peter Quill's character in a new direction where he meets his father who is a god, but then also he has the blue guy
Yondu recently.
Yeah, Yondu, and who was it's he wasn't your father, boy. He may have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy.
Yeah.
There's that's great. Every character has has an arc. With even the group having to learn how to follow directions. Or Batista has a great performance. He's so good.
He's really good.
To see how different it was more he was funny because his writing was funny in Guardians 1. He was it was kind of easy humor, oh, he takes everything literally. That's the joke. But he's legitimately hilarious in his acting in Guardians 2. And also with the script. And he also has a good emotional core where he's learning about where he has to think about his dead family, and then Mantis touches his arm and he's reserved, but obviously he's holding things in, but then she starts crying. This is a great scene. And also the weirdness, this movie, as someone who's seen more James Gunn movies now, this movie has the James Gunn violence that you would expect in his other movies, just a little more PG-13, but there's so many people die in this movie, and it's so glorious. It's great. And I don't know, Guardians 1, a lot of people still like Guardians 1 more. I'm kind of done with Guardians 1 now. I think Guardians 2 is just a much better version of the franchise, and I'm so excited to see what he does for Suicide Squad. I think the movie's gonna be a mess because there's too many characters, but maybe he'll surprise me. He handled this ensemble cast of Guardians 2 super well. Every character has a satisfying arc in it, and the Guardians characters are just the best in the Marvel universe. And I really appreciate Disney just giving him basically free reign. People get shot out into this bag into space, and you watch them die. And it's part of Yondu's, that scene where Yondu is watching his crew helplessly get shot into space. It's such a great scene. Yeah. And I love that scene so much.
Or that when it's a very stylized sequence, but when he's killing everyone with the arrow and they're all falling down.
Yes, and it's
all
playing.
These people are dead.
Yeah, and it's playing that that I like that song too. What's it called? Come a little bit closer by Jay and something. That's a great scene.
Yeah. It's but it's and then they cut to the shot of the arrow going through the guy's chest, and you're just what the fuck? You're oh my god. Yeah.
And then Rocket Raccoon smiling while he's shooting everyone, and then group cuts off a guy's finger.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that thumb?
It's we'll talk about. Yeah, Guardians 2. That was a movie I saw when it first came out because we saw it in theaters because of course we did. Yeah. And I was it's good, and then I watched it again. I'm it's fucking great. I'm whoa. Yeah. And you talked about Civil War.
Yeah, Civil War is also really good. maybe because I'm not as much of a Marvel fanboy now as I was, maybe I wouldn't like it as much. But I don't know. I like all the characters fighting together. It's like a little more like I have like so many like deep feelings about Guardians too.
Yeah.
It's so where I'm like, I like when they fight.
Yeah, they all punch each other and it's fun.
I like that's good. And
that final scene in Civil War is probably one of the best things Marvel has done, where they're all fighting and they're all falling.
Yeah. But I like Civil War in the context of Winter Soldier. Like without Winter Soldier, I like that Civil War stands up as well. Yeah. Like I think I like them as one unit. I think is like the best way to describe my feelings towards Civil War. But I like with the themes of Captain America having to realize that the government he fights for isn't as pure as he wants to think it is, or as it once was. And people say like that the hero debate in Civil War is more obvious. I don't think it really is. I think there's a lot of complexity to it. I think when like in Brother Me Rich Evans, like it's so clear that you want superheroes to have to be regulated, and it's like well, it's not necessarily the case. I mean, if they're regulated, then governments have their own agendas. So there's more complexity to the movie than people give it credit for. Yeah. But I'd say those two, and then like obviously like I mean, Infinity War is just like an experience.
Yeah. Infinity War is incredible. Because I was actually going to talk about Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but I'm actually going to switch it. I want to talk about Winter Soldier. It's the only thing that came closest to breaching like an honorable mentions. It was actually probably very close. Yeah. I find this movie to be really well done, and I know that seems like very muted of a compliment compared to the praises I've been singing of everything else. But the fact that it takes this like what's it called? Schoolyard this typical like American like hero and like brings them like makes them like really gritty and basically like completely alters the course of Captain America movies, because after this they realize we can't have Captain America be like I'm gonna beat you up. He has to be like more creative, and the fact that they changed this from like a kind of like this first movie's like a campy origin story to a political spy thriller with legitimately great action, interesting characters, and a wonderful kind of like overarching like government plot is really incredible and really well done. It's my favorite MCU movie. I don't think like Guardians 2 and Infinity War and like Iron Man 3 are like my top 4.
Iron Man 3 is great.
Iron Man 3 is great. I really like I
For the Dark World is a masterpiece.
For the Dark World is a masterpiece. And my other one I want to talk about, Matt, is Aquaman. I fucking love Aquaman.
Aquaman is legitimately good.
Yes, and that is the most.
You've seen it twice, right?
I've seen it twice. Yeah. Yes. It's so absurd.
Yeah.
It's so insane that this movie got made and is as big as it is. They literally threw like $300 million to fucking Aquaman.
Yeah.
And when do whatever you want. The final conflict of this is our hero fighting alongside our established monsters.
Yeah.
In a
killing his own people.
Killing his own people with an ancient god.
Yeah.
And we're rooting for him. And he kisses Amber Heard, and we're not gonna talk about Amber Heard because I think she got fired or whatever. I'm not really sure. But they kiss as his own people blow up in the background.
And then it's at the ending too. Like and everyone's like, yeah, he's king now.
It's amazing. It's so absurd. It's the best DCEU movie.
Yeah.
By miles.
Literally.
Miles. Yeah. It's stylistic. It's fun. It's visually interesting. It's actually legitimately like entertaining and funny at times.
It's really well directed.
That sequence when they're fighting on land and the camera's like following them as they run.
When they're in Sicily.
And they're like, it's like going through windows, and it's this wonderful chase sequence with the synth score. It's like, what the fuck movie is this? Like,
I was watching that on HBO, and I was like, this is like legitimately good.
Yeah, it's like it's great, and I think they set up like really great stuff. Like I was like, I want to see what the fuck happens to this like shooting laser guy, because he has legitimate motivations. Yeah. His god like left his dad to die. You're like, oh my god.
It's like it was in like Cosmonaut, right?
Yes.
He did a video where he was like, why Aquaman is terrible. But then like as the movie's going on, he's like the joke is that as he's reviewing it, he's like, wait, do I kind of like this movie?
Yeah.
And then at the end he's like, F it, I love Aquaman. It's so stupid, but I love it.
It's so great. It's just like when he's like
but then you have like Zack Snyder, who like when you watch the Batman Superman trailer, you're like this movie's legit. Like this movie's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
But then you watch it and it's miserable and it's pretentious and it's terrible. And then you're disappointed. Then you watch like Man of Steel and it's miserable and it's pretentious and it's terrible. And we watch Wonder Woman and it's fine.
It's fine.
It's like like Chris Pine carries that movie on his back and crawls to the finish line. Doing the best he can.
That's the best way you've ever put that movie before. He he carries that. Okay. He crawls to the finish line. He's dead by the end of the movie.
Yes, he's literally dragging an 18-wheeler behind him, with a tank inside the 18-wheeler, and he somehow does it. I don't know. I don't really like Gal Gadot. You couldn't tell. But you know,
he's
like
great in Furious 6.
It's like I don't want to talk about Zack Snyder. I don't talk about Zack Snyder that much, but it's like James Wan is a more talented filmmaker than Zack Snyder will ever be, and at the same time, he realizes that like this movie's dumb. So I'm gonna make the dumbest movie ever, but with also like that talent that there's like this great creativity to it as well that you get to admire. The plot is dumb, but the creativity around it, with the designs of everything, like we talk about Mad Max, like talking about how great and how well realized the culture is. The culture in this movie is so well realized and it's phenomenal. But it's so stupid, but it's great.
So dumb. It's like, just think the final fight is and I fucking love Patrick Wilson in this movie. He's just like this, like he's just like
he has no character, but he's awesome.
when he goes to like people of Atlantis and he his like voice like echoes. I'm like, this guy's fucking awesome. I'm like, he's so cool. They have like the final fight is like this Mortal Kombat style, like super like dark and grainy, but like it's like super contrasted fight at the end, and it's just amazing. I don't really care for Jason Momoa that much. I think he's awesome in this movie. He has like that Arnold Schwarzenegger where he's not a great actor, but he just has like this charm to him that you can't really deny. It's basically like Commando, where they're just like, you are not a good actor, like you just said, but we're just gonna cater this movie to how stupid you are. It's really great. Listen, it's not perfect. Duh, clearly. It's not like an amazing movie, but it's so much fun. And it's like 2.5 hours long, and I fucking love it. I love every second.
Yeah, there is talent in the filmmaking that's all over it. And like it's like why people are like, if James Wan directed the Justice League, I'd be excited for it. But I'm not excited for Zack Snyder's pretentious cut of this movie.
I'm glad because this is one of those movies that like every 4 months we're like, wasn't fucking Aquaman great? And then we just rant about Aquaman for like 30 minutes.
Aquaman is great.
That's like two of my best superhero movies of the decade. We can go through this quick. Surprise movie. Give me like one or two.
Lego Movie.
Lego Movie's excellent.
We saw that together as well. It's by the writers of 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street, who are great. 21 and 22 Jump Street are also like really great movies that I mean, they wouldn't be on my favorite of the decade, but they're solid comedies that are funny upon rewatch as well. But I remember seeing the trailer for Lego Movie and being like, this looks terrible, I don't care. And then we watched it and I was laughing the whole time. And I've continued to rewatch it since many times, and it's always hilarious. What's the name of the writer duo?
Oh no. Something. You know what? Keep talking about Lego Movie because now that's actually a really good point.
And then obviously the performances with Elizabeth Banks as
Phil Lord and Chris Miller.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller with what's his name as Emmett. Chris Pratt is Emmett, and Elizabeth Banks as like what's her name, Starfire or something stupid like that.
Star something, I don't know.
And like they're so good, and I mean especially Chris Pratt is so hilarious in this movie. And there's so many like great cynical jokes where like his life is so boring. It's like a Yorgos Lanthimos movie at the beginning where his life is so boring, and he's so happy to be in it. And I don't know, it's literally so funny, and it's like. Phil Lord and Chris Miller are great at making movies that are funny upon rewatch. Like Deadpool is not funny upon rewatch. Deadpool 2 is not funny upon rewatch. But they're able to make movies that are funny the more times you watch it because the performances are so great.
I completely agree. I have two quick movies real quick. One of my surprise movies, Black Cat. I'm a big Michael Mann fan. Everyone, you guys like to shit on me for that. It's critically not lauded. Just shat on is the best way I can put it. Everyone hates this movie. It's a box office flop, and I think it's really great. I think it's one of my more favorite Michael Mann movies. I love We're gonna eventually. I'm gonna recommend it. We're eventually get to it, so I won't spoil it. And then my second one is Brawl in Cell Block 99.
Yeah.
Yeah. We watched this together, and when it was over, we like collapsed to the floor.
I literally fell on the floor.
We're just like, what the fuck? Because you really love Bone Tomahawk, and then you're like, we have to watch this movie, and I went, okay. And I watched it, and we're just like exhausted. This is Vince Vaughn's best movie. Yeah. It's so like wonderfully like cynical and nihilistic, but also like very like witty. And not witty, but like kind of funny and like a biting funny.
Don Johnson is great.
He's great. Yeah. I just kind of love this movie. It's my favorite S. Craig Zahler movie.
Yeah, that's the thing is like there's so many other great movies that came out this decade. Like I love Brawl in Cell Block 99. I really love Bone Tomahawk, but there's so many great movies that came out in 2010s that it's hard to mention them all. But those I'm legitimately considering doing an S. Craig Zahler like series at some point with Frauds because his movies are really interesting.
He's incredible. Those are surprise movies. Director of the decade,
Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve. Him and like I was thinking when I was talking about La La Land, I'm like Damien Chazelle's up there too for me. But Denis Villeneuve he's probably the most famous director of the decade. I mean, if you look at Enemy, Sicario, Prisoners, Arrival, Blade Runner, and he was going to make Dune in 2020. I know it's not technically of the decade, but I mean, how can you? I mean, that's just such an incredible run of movies that.
I would say Yorgos is. Wait, I'm gonna look at what he did in 20. But Yorgos Lanthimos, Lobster, Killing Sacred Deer, the favorite.
Yeah.
Dogtooth came out in 2009, so it doesn't count. But those movies alone are enough to. The Alps came out in 2011 actually, so that movie as well. So yeah, he had a phenomenal 2010s.
You could even look at something like David Fincher. You have Social Network, Girl with the Dread Tattoo, Gone Girl, and then Mindhunters. I mean, it's he has a lot. There's a lot of good stuff, but I feel like in terms of rise to prominence, and then just notoriety and just like pure greatness on each movie, I think it's Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah, Denis Villeneuve. Regarding how he's able to, because he had the impossible task of making a Blade Runner sequel and then making it better in many ways.
I think it's substantially better.
Yeah, like that's the thing is, I remember in an interview he was saying that I took on Blade Runner 2049 because I'm the only person I trust to make the movie.
That's so
which is like the coolest
awesome
thing you could ever say.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where he understands the source material better than Ridley Scott, and I feel like Harrison Ford probably had a lot to do with that as well because Harrison Ford brings it to this movie.
Yeah,
like he's good in Force Awakens, but he's playing Han Solo, and I'm sure they probably didn't tell him to play it with any more depth than just be Han Solo again. Yeah. But he, as Deckard, he just brings it, and he's great. Ryan Gosling's great. The way the movie shot, like it's like he did, like Denis Villeneuve, the impossible task of making this. No one can handle blockbuster-ish movies with like the arts feel better than Denis Villeneuve. Because like I don't consider like Sicario like a blockbuster movie, but it's obviously a big budget movie that's handled very well. And Blade Runner 2049 obviously was handled expertly as well. But yeah, making smart sci-fi movies, he did the impossible there, and then I'm excited to see what his Dune is because he probably will make it really great.
Yeah. I just want to throw out there that it feels like a very like I don't feel like when the marketing came out for Blade Runner 2049, I don't think he wanted Harrison Ford anywhere near the marketing. Yeah. Because that his reveal in the movie, it's not a spoiler because it's on all the marketing stuff. It's in the trailer. Feels like something where it was supposed to be a big reveal. Like, but then it feels like the marketing came out. It's like this movie's not on track to make any money. We have to put Harrison Ford in it. Yeah. Like, look, it's a continuation. Which is
going back to surprises though. I remember seeing that trailer and being like, okay.
Yeah.
Like I was like, whatever. I don't really care. Yeah, it just seemed like potential because I'd seen Blade Runner once before and I didn't really like it. And then we watched Blade Runner again. You for the first time, you for the second time, and I was like, oh, I get it now. Like I kind of then I loved it right before we saw it 2049. That was an afternoon.
That was an afternoon. We watched Blade Runner and then Blade Runner 2049 immediately after.
Yeah, but then when you see it and it's just and then like that the Ana de Armas scene where she's like her projected on top of the other person.
Yep.
Like there's something just like when you think of sci-fi epics, you think of Star Wars with like fight scenes and everything, but like this is such like a quaint movie in a way, but like they find interesting ways like that seems more memorable than anything in any Star Wars movie that's come out or
100%.
Anything like that. It's like the way you like it feels like it's like this unique sci-fi world that's so interesting.
Yeah, I actively listen to that song "Tears in the Rain." Like Blade Runner 2049, it comes up on my Spotify. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is like the next 2 minutes 40 seconds of my life. Yeah. Yeah, Denis Villeneuve. I mean, that's a very like expected answer, but sometimes the expected answer is the right answer.
Yeah, in this case, it's absolutely the right one.
We have a couple trends we want to talk about, but this podcast is running a little long, so let's do one trend each, and we'll talk about like one trend we're noticing in movies in 2010 or things that have kind of like come out, because we very much have come into our love of movies in the 2010s just because of our age. Matt, what's one trend that you've seen in movies in 2010s you want to talk about?
I'll say like the run length of blockbuster movies are getting too long.
Very long.
Mainly, it really hit me with It, Chapter 1.
Dude, you fucking see It Chapter 2. Holy shit.
Yeah, I never even bothered to see it. I only saw it because you made me see it, Chapter 1. But it was just like so many scenes of pointless going down a hallway where nothing happens. And I don't know why filmmakers or producers feel obligated to make longer. Like Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker was 2.5 hours long, and I don't know why it was. Like, I don't know why producers think that they need to make movies longer. Do they think that like audiences are more willing to pay money for like more bang for their buck kind of thing? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But it seems like people, but these movies make a ton of money, so it shows that audiences like to sit in movies for 2.5 hours long for no reason at all. And I can't really understand that. Granted, my second favorite movie of the year was a 2.5 hour long movie, but that's different because it needed to be 2.5 hours long.
Yep.
But I mean, and then also with like Infinity War, like you understand why it's as long as it is because it's like this epic conclusion. But why is it so long? Yeah. Why is Valerian 2.5 hours long? I don't know. Like, do you feel the same way as me?
I feel like it's one of those things where it ties into a much longer conversation of like expanded universes, where now movies have to tackle so many different things, and half of those things are expanding on stuff for future projects. Like, one of my favorite examples of a movie that was perfect length is Dunkirk, where Dunkirk was 1 hour and 45 minutes, but Christopher Nolan was on this trend where his movies were becoming 2 hours and 15 minutes plus, to closer to 2.5 hours. And then he turns around and makes Dunkirk, which is not long. It's not a minute longer than it has to be. And because of that, you're petting Murphy right now.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's his best movie. But it feels like you're right. It's this attempt to cram as much in as possible, and it feels like a lot of these movies could be trimmed down a little bit, and it'd be more effective, because oftentimes these longer movies, 1 hour and 30 minutes in, the pace is like bogged down, and it's like like you said, it's like crawling to a finish. If you cut off 30 minutes of this, I think it's really good. And again, I mean, my third favorite movie of the decade was a 2 hour and 40 minute South Korean movie, but it's because that is the type of story that it needs to tell. It has to build that up. And we're not talking about examples where the narrative serves the length. It's these movies that feel superfluous for superfluous sake.
Like pointless action scenes for no reason, pointless horror scenes for no reason. I think they do it just so like the audience to feel like they're getting more money out of it, and also to build expand universes. But why is Batman Superman 2.5 hours long? That movie could have been 1 hour and 45, and I may have liked it.
Yeah. This isn't us talking about like Avengers Endgame, because Avengers Endgame is over 3 hours. But that kind of like you mentioned, like those movies kind of have to be that long because they're building up to that.
Yeah.
But you're right.
I feel like even because like they earned their universe, their cinematic universe in a way. So
yeah, but like why?
I'm probably never gonna watch Avengers Endgame again. So
I watched it. I watched it this summer with my younger brother, and it's one of those movies like if you just watch a couple YouTube clips, you got it. I'm just right there. Movies are very long now, and that's why I've said it before. Another one of our favorite things is we're big proponents of the 90-minute movie. You can get everything done 90 minutes. You got us. I want to talk about the current trend of mine is the death of like the middle tier, mid-budget movies. The $20 to $40 million, and this isn't a new thought or anything, but you're seeing this weird shift to either side of big blockbuster movies, and that's what's dominating theaters. And now these indie darlings, which are basically like the movies that are made for cheap, but everyone seems to like love, or everyone loves, and they blow up more. And listen, they're not the mid-tier budget movies are dead. You just have to look at someone like Tarantino, who Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I imagine, and this might be talking about my ass a little bit, was probably closer to a mid-budget movie than a $100 million extravaganza.
No, Brad Pitt and Leo DiCaprio and Margot Robbie on the roster.
That's a very good point. That alone cost
like production-wise, I understand what you're saying.
Where it just feels like a mid-budget, because now one of my best examples of this is a movie like Upgrade. Upgrade is a really solid 2018 action movie. that was made for, it's never been reported, but it's around like $3 to $5 million. And that's a movie that could have commanded a higher budget, probably been better than that. But because it's an untested IP, and it's because it's not a $100 million ask, there's no way a movie like that's getting that. There's no way a movie like that is going to make that type of money. It falls into that, like, we gotta work with what we can, and it does benefit it. But you look at it and you're like, I wonder what it would have been like if it's just a little bit more money given into it. And I think this mid-budget movie is dangerous in a sense that it's not. It's just creating this trend that is going to separate and it's going to destroy theaters.
Can you imagine like Apostle being released in theaters?
I forgot about Apostle. Apostle's kind of great.
It's a really, really solid movie that has no like previous IP or anything. Has Dan Stevens, who's not really that famous of an actor, but you know, people know him at the very least. But yeah, like that movie. Can you imagine like Warner Bros. Like putting money into marketing that? Like no, that would never happen.
Like Apostle, think about like The Guest.
The Guest either.
We completely haven't talked about The Guest. The Guest is also another surprise movie. The Guest is great. But it's one of those movies that like it bombed. And it's a mid-budget movie. It was made for some money, but not a ton, and no one went to go see it. And because it's not this like indie darling or it's not this giant IP, and I think it's a really hard trend because now movies are no longer led by their actors outside of what like Leo, maybe Brad Pitt, and like Tom Cruise.
Yeah, and they're all
and the Rock,
40 plus.
Yeah. And The Rock is one of them. Like Ryan Reynolds is becoming one of those people. Like, did you just see?
Unfortunately,
I'm not the biggest Ryan Reynolds fan either. But like this movie, the Netflix movie Red Notice, Tom Cruise, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot. Like that sounds like
terrible.
That sounds, first off, yes. And second, that's like the most.
Someone's at the door. I'm sorry.
All right, we'll be right back. And we're back. Matt had a poop this time. He cannot.
Someone came to my door.
Yeah, so basically the middle tier budget movie's dead and it's very disappointing.
Yeah.
But that was our entire discussion around a lot of movies. We might
the middle budget's dead in like a theater
a theatrical sense, yes. Yeah. But yeah, that's our best of the
our Lord and Savior Jeff Bezos.
Please just keep making middle budget tier movies.
Whoever runs Netflix, I don't even know who runs Netflix.
I don't know who runs that. It doesn't matter. They make good movies though. I like them. Yeah, they make okay movies actually.
I mean, like What Happened to Monday is like actually a pretty solid sci-fi action movie.
Yeah.
Which I just watched randomly and I never would have watched it, and I can't imagine like a movie like a actual like movie company like putting it in theaters.
Yeah. Or a movie like Mute, which is terrible, but yeah, no, that movie would have bombed. I'd have been okay with that. Yeah, Matt, I think this is our best episode because Mark's gone.
I think so too.
Mark, we're calling you out. You're fired.
Yeah, you're fired.
Slip. Don't ever come back with your watch making ass.
But he's not going to watch this video because he's too busy studying. So
yeah, Mark, you'll never know what our best of the decade is because you're a fraud. But
no, but Mark's favorite movie. Mark has the objective best movies because he just started watching the movies a year ago, so he knows which ones are the best.
Do you know what Mark's best movie of the decade is?
Portrait Laid on Fire.
Portrait Laid on Fire, which we have an episode on too.
Yeah, we do. Watch it. It's a fine movie.
It's a fine movie. Yeah, it's good.
It's okay.
It's all right. Mark,
it's all right. It's cute. It's cute. They tried.
They tried. Mark, we're calling you out. We want you to come back on here. You know what? How about this? We're not going to say anything to Mark, but we're going to say Portrait of a Lady on Fire. We're calling you out, Mark. And if you don't come back next episode and start up the episodes fighting us on this, we know you did not watch this.
Mm-hmm.
So Mark,
I like that.
When we record our Trial of Chicago 7 next week, if you don't call us out on this, we know you didn't watch this episode. So we got you. We're not going to say anything. All right, Matt.
Got it.
What's our call to action? What are we doing?
Like, comment, subscribe. We're also on iTunes and YouTube and Spotify and Scrabbles. Can't make a joke anymore because Funhouse doesn't exist.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Comment for your film fraud, or comment what are your favorite movies of 2010s? What trends do you see happening in 2010s that you like or dislike? Who's your director of the year?
Surprise movie.
What did you have for breakfast this morning? Just let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, how's your day going? Is it good?
Yeah,
good?
Probably better than Tyler's.
How many fingers am I holding behind my back?
0.
No, you'll never know. I actually just made a fist.
So what? I was right.
No, I had 2. You guessed it wrong. Because there's only 2 of us, and there's no longer 3 of us at Film Fraud.
Yeah, I kind of like this better.
Like, so do I. Mark, you're a fraud. But yeah, that's our episode. This one's a very long one, so if you guys stuck through it, thank you guys for watching. And I got the final word. Go.